Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a truck so honest, so brutally practical, that it doesn't care about comfort, style, or your opinion. It just shows up, works all day, and leaves without asking for applause. That's the 1942 Chevrolet AK. Series Steak. Bed dump truck. No drama, no luxury, just steel, wood, and the kind of reliability that makes modern machines look like they need therapy. And before we dive into this mechanical workhorse, hit that subscribe button, because if this truck could survive decades of hauling lumber and dirt, you can survive clicking one button. Let's keep these legends alive together. Now, we roll back to 1942, United States. Chevrolet introduced the AK series in 1941, built on General Motors, a platform, sharing engineering DNA with passenger cars like the Chevrolet Deluxe. But don't be fooled, this was no city cruiser. This was a 1.5 tons commercial machine designed for farms, construction sites, and businesses that didn't have time for breakdowns. The world was deep in World War II and production priorities were shifting. Materials were limited, civilian vehicle output was restricted, and trucks like this became essential tools for the domestic economy. This specific truck tells a story that feels almost cinematic. It was purchased in January 1947 by Smith Barnes Lumber Company in Flint Hill, Virginia. That means it likely survived wartime limitations and entered full civilian service during the post-war rebuilding era. For 4 years, it worked under the same ownership, hauling timber and supplies, basically doing the kind of labor politicians promise to understand but never actually do. Trucks like this weren't collectibles, they were tools. The fact that this one later spent around 15 years in a museum tells you everything about its historical value. Under the hood sits Chevrolet's 216 cubic-inch inline-six engine. That's about 4 liters, paired with a single downdraft carburetor and an oil bath air cleaner. Power output hovered around 90 horsepower, which today sounds modest, but back then it was perfectly adequate for hauling serious weight. The engine is mounted up front, driving the rear wheels through a 4-speed manual transmission. And this gearbox wasn't about speed, it was about torque and control. Timmy once tried driving something like this and asked where the sport mode button was. I told him, buddy, the only mode here is work. The truck rides on a heavy-duty ladder frame with leaf spring suspension at both ends. This setup ensured durability under load, even if ride comfort wasn't exactly a priority. Braking is handled by drum brakes on all 4 wheels, delivering stopping power that required planning ahead, something modern drivers, and definitely Timmy, struggle with. Dimensionally, this truck is all business. With a gross weight rating of up to 20,000 pounds, about 9,000 kilograms, it was built to carry serious load. The dual rear wheels provided stability and traction, especially when the hydraulically operated dump bed was fully loaded. The bed itself features a varnished wood floor with metal runners and removable stake sides, combining flexibility with rugged construction. And then comes the magic. The hydraulic dump system. Powered by a Daybrook PTO-driven unit, it allowed the driver to raise the bed and unload material efficiently. Today we take that for granted, but back then this was serious productivity. Bob once said hydraulic systems are how machines slowly take over the world. I told him, relax, Bob, it's just dumping gravel, not launching rockets. Inside the cab, things were simple but surprisingly thoughtful. A bench seat reupholstered in brown vinyl, a hammer-finished dashboard, and a full set of gauges including speed, oil pressure, fuel level, battery, and temperature. The 2-piece windshield could be cranked outward for ventilation, which is basically 1940s air conditioning. There's even a heater and a mounted Pyrene fire extinguisher, because nothing says confidence like preparing for everything. top speeds were modest, and fuel consumption reflected the era's engineering efficient enough for work, but definitely not cheap by modern standards. Still, this truck wasn't about saving fuel, it was about getting the job done, no excuses. Design-wise, the 1942 Chevrolet AK series follows a philosophy that feels almost extinct today. Function first, everything else later. The fenders are bold and rounded, the running boards wide and practical, and the overall stance is tall, upright, and confident. It doesn't try to impress, it simply exists with purpose. The stake bed design adds flexibility, allowing the truck to carry everything from lumber to loose materials, while the dump mechanism transforms it from a hauler into a full-on productivity machine. Inside, the philosophy continues. No unnecessary decoration, no distractions, just what you need to work. The rubber floor liner, simple controls, and straightforward layout remind you that this cab was a workplace, not a lounge, and yet there's something charming about it. The crank-out windshield, the analog gauges, even the slightly worn textures, they all tell a story. Timmy once said he prefers luxury interiors, but I've seen his living room, and honestly, this truck is better organized. Chevrolet competed with Ford and Dodge in a market where reliability mattered more than branding. Ford had its own durable platforms, Dodge leaned into rugged engineering, but Chevrolet struck a balance affordable, serviceable, and widely supported. Today, you need a laptop and a software update just to understand what's wrong. Back then, you needed tools, patience, and maybe a strong cup of coffee. What sets this truck apart today is not just its capability, but its story. This particular example worked for a lumber company, then survived long enough to be restored and displayed in a museum for about 15 years. That transition from tool to exhibit is something very few vehicles achieve. Bob claims museums are just storage for forgotten technology. But even he admitted this truck looks like it could still go back to work tomorrow. And honestly, that's the beauty of it. This isn't a fragile collector's item that you're afraid to touch. It's a machine built to endure. You can almost hear the echoes of its past wood being loaded, gravel being dumped, engines idling early in the morning while the world wakes up. It represents a time when machines didn't just assist people. They worked alongside them. Before we talk about value, let's give this truck the respect it deserves. It carried materials, supported livelihoods, and survived decades without asking for attention. It's not flashy, it's not fast, but it's real, and in a world full of over-designed everything, that honesty feels refreshing. Now, about the numbers. Back in the early 1940s, a Chevrolet truck like this would typically cost in the range of $800 to $1,200, depending on configuration. Adjusted to today's value, that's roughly $15,000 to $25,000. In the modern collector market, restored examples like this one can vary widely depending on condition, originality, and provenance, often landing somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000. Final advice: if you ever get behind the wheel of one of these, respect it. Take your time, plan your stops, and remember, this truck doesn't rush for anyone, and honestly, neither should you.